Hi there. Welcome to Fountain Valley, California, home of the Orange County Water District. My name is Mike Markus, and I'm the general manager of the Water District. And what we're going to do today is really exciting, I think, because we're going to take a tour of the world's largest potable reuse project, which we call the Groundwater Replenishment System. Before we start the tour, however, I would like to explain a little bit about what the Orange County Water District does. We are groundwater managers, so we manage a very large groundwater basin in central and northern Orange County. This groundwater basin provides 85% of the total water demands for 19 retail water agencies and a population of about 2.5 million people. So it's very important for us as groundwater managers to make sure that we have supplies to put back into the groundwater basin so that we can continue to pump water out of the ground at that high percentage. So what we've done in order to do that is we've turned to recycled water. And we've built this project to supply water back into the groundwater basin. And currently it supplies about 40% of the amount of water that we put back into the groundwater basin on an annual basis. Now this is very important for us because we live in a semi-arid environment. We only get about 13.5 inches of rainfall a year. So it's very important for us to develop that local water supply reliability. And that's what the Groundwater Replenishment System gives us. Now this project started back really in the mid-90s, and we started pilot testing different technologies. So we were taking a look at microfiltration, reverse osmosis, UV light with hydrogen peroxide. And we pilot tested all those technologies successfully. We moved forward, we developed the project, we built the project. The project actually went online in January of 2008 at 70 million gallons per day. So that was the first phase of the project. So it's really quite incredible. We've been operating this facility for 15 years and very successfully. And then in May of 2015, we added the first expansion, the first increment of 30 million gallons per day. So in May of 2015, we were up to 100 million gallons per day. And then just in April of 2023, we added the final expansion, another 30 million gallon per day increment to get us up to 130 million gallons per day. And that's enough water on an annual basis to supply 1 million people with drinking water. So it's very, very significant. I'm very excited to go on this tour to show you the different steps in the process. And we're going to start out with microfiltration. So why don't you come and follow me and we'll take a look at the first step of the process, the microfiltration. Right now we're in the microfiltration area. And what we see on this side of the microfiltration are these long rectangular basins. And inside each one of these basins are 4 microfiltration cells, so these individual cells. Right now there's 6 of these long rectangular basins where we're standing now, so a total of 24 cells of microfiltration. And we're on the east side of the microfiltration. On the other side is the west side, and it's a mirror image of what we have here. So there's an additional 24 cells on the other side, which gives us a total of 48 cells of microfiltration. And each one of these cells is producing about 3.5 million gallons per day. Now, if we take a look down into the basin, we'll see these racks in each cell. And there's 19 racks in each cell, and then hanging on each one of those racks are 36 membrane modules. So there's a total of 684 membrane modules in each cell. And if we take a look here, we have a demo of what a membrane module looks like, and that's where the actual membrane is. So these are membrane modules. Inside this plastic casing, there's 15,000 polypropylene fibers, and these are hollow fibers. So if we take a look at this demo here, we pull out a hollow fiber, we can see this is what the actual membrane material looks like. Now, something in the house that you might have that's akin to a hollow fiber is a straw. And that's what this membrane is. It's basically a straw made out of polypropylene, which is a type of plastic. Now, what you can't see on the side of these straws are tiny microscopic holes in the side of the straw. So they're 0.2 microns, or 1/300th the size of a human hair. Now imagine you have a straw with holes in it, you pinch the bottom of the straw, put it in water, suck on the straw, what's going to happen? Well, the water is going to come from the outside through those tiny holes and then up the top of the straw. And that basically will be the filtered water. Anything larger than 0.2 microns stays on the outside of the fiber. And that's simply how microfiltration works. It removes any bacteria, protozoa, or suspended solids in the water. Now you can imagine over time you're going to get those solids kind of clogging the outside of the membrane. You're going to have to suck harder to pull the water through. So what happens in each one of these 48 cells is every 21 minutes it goes through a backwash or an air scour. So we introduce air into the basin, it stirs up the contents of the tank, it knocks that particulate matter off of the membrane, puts it in suspension, and then after about a minute it stops, the tank drains, that waste goes back to the sanitation district, and then the tank fills up again and starts filtering. So each cell goes into backwash every 21 minutes. Now you do get some buildup, some biological growth on the outside of these membranes, so every 21 days we go through a cleaning cycle. And what we do is we introduce sodium hydroxide and citric acid and acid and a base, and we go through and run that through the system for about 2 hours, let it soak. And in doing that, what we're doing is we're destroying that biological foulant, we're restoring the membrane back to near original condition. So as long as we backwash every 21 minutes and we clean every 21 days, these membrane modules will last about 7 years. They have a 7-year lifetime. So that basically is how the microfiltration works. And what I'd like to do now is maybe stroll through the control room and let you see what's going on inside there. So follow me. Right now we're in the control room, and this is really the heart and soul of the treatment plant, because this is where we're able to see what's going on throughout the plant. And we always have at least one operator who's monitoring what's going on throughout the plant. We have a total of 5 operators per shift. These operators work 12-hour shifts, so we do operate the plant 24/7. And that's very important for us to maintain that high level of productivity and just to make sure that everything is running properly. So the first screen that we look at kind of gives you the overview, the macroscopic level of what's going on with the system. And it starts out at OC San, the sanitation district. So we get all of our water from the Orange County Sanitation District, and they treat all of the industrial and domestic waste in our same service area, that same population base of 2.5 million people. Now they go through a process, a primary process, which more or less settles solids out, a secondary process, which is a biological process, and then typically what they would do is they would discharge that water to the ocean. So it's safe enough to be discharged to the ocean. But instead of discharging to the ocean, we're taking that water and we're recycling it. So we don't consider wastewater a waste, we consider it a resource. So we take that water, we run it through our advanced purification process. So right here we have the sanitation district, and we can see the flows coming from their plants that feed the groundwater replenishment system. And the flows go from the sanitation district into the microfiltration. From the microfiltration, it gets pumped over to a break tank. So we have about a 2 million gallon tank between the microfiltration and the RO. From the break tank, it gets pumped over to the reverse osmosis, or RO, goes through the RO, and then through the UV light, and then into a final tank, and then it's pumped 2 different places. It's pumped to our recharge facilities, which are about 14 miles away. So the facility here in Fountain Valley is along the coast, and our recharge basins are inland. So we had to build a large pump station to move the water up to our recharge basins so that we could naturally percolate it into the basin. So most of the water goes up there. However, some of the water goes here locally into seawater barriers. So back in the late 70s, we were starting to get seawater intrusion because we are a coastal aquifer. And so we built a series of injection wells along the coast and injected water to create a freshwater mound and keep that seawater from coming inland and contaminating the groundwater basin. So a portion of the water also gets pumped into those injection wells. Those are the two sources of supply. Now, the other nice feature of this program is the operator can drill down into any one of the process areas. So let's take microfiltration as an example. The operator can drill down and see all 48 cells that are operating and what stage that they're in, whether they're filtering, whether they're in backwash, whether they're shut down, what the flow rate is in each cell. And then they can even drill down further and take a look at an individual cell. And this gives them a lot of information. This shows what the water quality is coming in from the sanitation district. What they look at is we look at turbidity as kind of a key indicator, and the sanitation district has to give us water that's below 5 NTU, so that we can see right here we're a little over 3, so that's good. We can take a look at valves, whether they're open, what the water level in the cell is, temperature level, pumping, what the pump rate is, and then if anything were to go wrong with any of these different valves or pumps, the operator would get an alarm and they'd be able to go to the screen and see what the issue was, and then either react to it here in the control room or send someone down into the basement to troubleshoot the issue also. So a tremendously powerful system that runs this plant. So with that, why don't we go down into the microfiltration basin and take a look at what's down there. So follow me. Right now we're in the microfiltration basement. And a few minutes ago, we were standing about 21 feet above where I'm standing right now and looking over into the cell of microfiltration. And on the other side of this concrete wall is where those individual cells of microfiltration are. Now, this big blue pipe above us is the water, the secondary effluent that's coming from the sanitation district. And the reason we're down so low is that we use Mother Nature to bring the water to us. So we use gravity to bring the water from the end of the sanitation treatment plant to this point. If we didn't do that, we'd have to build a lift station and pump it over here, maybe save a little concrete, but it makes more sense to flow by gravity. So the secondary effluent is coming from here. The water then will go into the individual cells. This is a butterfly valve right here. This is normally open. There's one on the bottom that's closed. So with this valve open, the water just continually feeds into the cell on the other side of the concrete wall. It will continue to do that for 21 minutes. And if you remember, there's something that happens at 21 minutes in each one of the cells. So 21 minutes go by, the process control system tells this valve to close. It then turns blowers on, and these blowers provide the air for the air scour. So that air scour goes on for 1 minute. After a minute, the valve on the bottom opens. The contents of the tank then drain, going into a underground pipe that goes to a sump. That waste gets pumped back to the sanitation district. After the tank is drained, the bottom valve closes, the top valve opens, and it continues to feed water. So that's how the system works. What's also interesting, on all the valves here, we use pneumatic operators. You can hear the pneumatics in the background probably. So we use pneumatics because with air actuators, those valves will open almost instantaneously. Whereas if we use an electric motor operator, it would take anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds to open and close the valves. And that would simply mean a loss of production for us. So we use pneumatics. It works out very well, and it helps us maintain a very high operational efficiency. So we showed you where the water goes into the cell. Now we're going to go on the other side and show you where we pull the water through the membranes. So follow me. Right now we're still in the basement of the microfiltration, but we've gone around to the other side of the microfiltration cell. So remember, we're just over seeing where the water goes into the cell. Now we're seeing where the water comes out of the cell. And the water comes out of the cell mainly by virtue of this pump. This horizontal centrifugal 60 horsepower motor pump provides the suction that pulls the water through the 684 membrane modules on the other side of this concrete wall. And you can see by the piping and all the instrumentation, we're measuring a lot of different things. So we're measuring pressure, we're measuring temperature, pressure again, flow. We have level indicators going through the concrete wall, so measuring levels inside of the cell. And all this information being processed through the process control system. So there again, the process control system gathering the information, telling different pieces of equipment when to start, stop, open, or close. Very sophisticated system. And there again, you need that on a plant this size. The other nice thing about this piping layout is if you walked throughout the basement, you would see this replicated 48 times. So all the equipment is identical. Throughout the different phases, we maintain the same manufacturer so that we have the same system from the original project through the final expansion. It makes the operations a lot simpler, particularly when you're operating a plant this large. So we're going to leave the basement now and head over to the RO building. So if you'll follow me, we'll head over there. So now we're in the reverse osmosis building. And right now I'm standing in front of what we refer to as a unit of reverse osmosis. So one unit consists of 150 of these white tubes or pressure vessels. Inside of each of these pressure vessels are 7 RO elements. That's the actual membrane. So we put 7 of those elements in each one of the 150 pressure vessels, and then this unit will produce 5 million gallons of water per day. Now, if you take a look throughout this building, we have a total of 27 units of RO. Normally, we'll be operating 26 units, which gives us our capacity of 130 million gallons per day of reverse osmosis treated water. Now, the reverse osmosis will remove any dissolved minerals, viruses, or pharmaceuticals in the water. So this is really the workhorse of the treatment process. About the only thing that gets through the RO are some very, very small, what we call low-weight molecular organic compounds. So that's what the RO removes. Now, it takes a lot of pressure. The process works. The RO membranes are thin film sheets of plastic, whereby you push the water molecules through that membrane, through that thin plastic membrane, and the contaminants stay on the outside. So it takes a lot of pressure. All of these very large pumps that you see in the background, 1,000 horsepower vertical turbine pumps, they provide the pressure that forces the water molecules through the membrane material. And then that brine or that reject stream goes back to the sanitation district and goes out their ocean outfall, which is where it would have gone in the first place. So that's how we dispose of the brine. These membranes have an 85% recovery. And what that means is for every 10 gallons of water that goes in, we get 8.5 gallons of purified water and 1.5 gallons of brine that we dispose of. So that in essence is how the RO works. As I said, this is really the heart and soul of the treatment process. However, those low-weight molecular organics do get through, and we're going to go to the next step because that's what destroys those small organics. So follow me over to the UV. The last step of the treatment process is what we call UV light with hydrogen peroxide. And as the name implied, there's really two things that are going on here. But primarily, we're using ultraviolet light to destroy certain compounds. So you can see this, what we call UV train in front of me, and there's 3 chambers, 3 of these vessels, one stacked on top of each other. And the water will flow down the bottom, across the bottom one, into the middle chamber, and then up to the top, and then over and out. So it's completed. So the water moves through fairly quickly. Now what you can't see is inside of each of these vessels, we have the UV lamps, and this is what a UV lamp looks like. So this is the actual lamp that I have in my left hand, and I'm holding on to the sleeve. This is called a quartz sleeve. So the lamp goes inside of the sleeve and then in a reactor at one end of the chamber. So there's two reactors, one on each end, and there's 72 of these lamps in each chamber. So for this train, these three chambers, there's about 450 of these lamps total. And each one of these trains will treat about a little less than 9 million gallons per day. And we have a total of 15 trains in the facility. Now what happens in this process, I mentioned there's really two things going on. We have, first of all, direct photolysis. And what direct photolysis does is it's just the light, the UV light, the photons of light that actually break the chemical bonds of certain compounds and render them neutral. So there's a compound called NDMA, N-nitrosodimethylamine, that we have to remove below 10 parts per trillion per our permit. And the UV light very effectively through direct photolysis destroys the NDMA and renders it into a neutral compound. There's another compound on our list called 1,4-dioxane. And the 1,4-dioxane goes right through the light, has no effect on it whatsoever. So that's where the hydrogen peroxide comes in. So we add hydrogen peroxide into the water. Through direct photolysis, that hydrogen peroxide, or H2O2, is transformed into what's called a hydroxyl radical, or an OH dot. That hydroxyl radical will then chemically combine with the 1,4-dioxane and render it into a neutral compound. And that process is actually called advanced oxidation, or AOP. So two things going on. We have the direct photolysis, we have the AOP, and by the time the water has gone through this three-step process, we've taken wastewater, treated wastewater, secondary effluent, and turned it into basically distilled water. And so now, as the final stop in the tour, we're going to go get a taste of the water. So why don't you follow me over to the sinks and we'll take a taste of the water. So now we're at the final stop. We're at the sinks, and this is where we're going to get a taste of the water. But before we do that, I want to kind of explain what's going on here, because we use this as an educational tool. In the middle sink, we have water that's been microfiltered. So this is water that's coming into the reverse osmosis treatment process. The right-hand sink is actually the brine that we've, so it's the water, the contaminants have been taken out of the water. And then on the left is the purified water. So this is the water that's gone through the membrane process, through the advanced oxidation, and is basically distilled water. So with that, we always offer people on their tours a taste of the water. So let's cheers. Very thirst quenching, it's outstanding, fresh, clean, pure water. And you know, some people say, well, Mike, why can't we drink this directly? And we can't do that right now. What we do at the Orange County Water District is we put it back into our groundwater base, and then it gets pumped out by the retail water agencies and served directly to the consumers. We're not at a point yet where we have the regulations in place that would allow us to drink this water directly. However, in the state of California, those are being developed, and by the end of 2023, we should have regulations that will allow other agencies that don't have large groundwater basins or reservoirs to store the water to go to what's called direct potable reuse. And so that's the future of recycled water. Not quite there, it's on the horizon. So hopefully that explains things. Hopefully you enjoyed the tour, and I would encourage all of you, if you're ever in Orange County, in Fountain Valley, stop by, see the real thing. It's one thing to watch on a video, it's another thing to be up close and personal. If you can't do that, certainly see the video, share with your friends, and take a look at the rest of our website, because there's a tremendous amount of information on the website having to do with recycled water, and the advanced purification process. So I really thank you for joining us today, and hope you'll come back sometime in the future and join us again. Thanks a lot.